Hey guys, welcome back. So we'll move into Unit 3 now, and Unit 3 is about the male and female reproductive systems. So let's get started with this video, and we'll introduce the male reproductive system. So this is a great slide for you guys to have a look at here. By the end of this section, you should be familiar with each one of these structures and their function. Okay, so this is a good slide for you to come back to and review. And in the meantime, let's get into it. Okay, so the male reproductive system consists of, first and foremost, the gonads. Gonads are the organ in the male and female body that produces the sex cells. So in males, the gonad is going to be the testicles or the testes, which produce the sperm. In females, the gonads will be the ovaries, which produce the egg. All right, so on top of the gonads, we're going to have a system of ducts. So these are going to include the epididymis, the vas deferens, the ejaculatory duct, and the urethra. Those are going to carry the gonads throughout the reproductive system. And then we'll also have accessory glands. So seminal vesicles, the prostate, and the bulbourethral glands. Those are all going to be accessory glands, which add things to the gametes in order to help them survive or increase their chances of success. And then the last thing we'll have are supporting structures, which in this case include the scrotum and the penis. So this is a model that we can have for both the female and the male reproductive system, although this one's specific to the male. All right, so start out with the gonads. The gonads in the male, of course, are the testes, and they're a pair of oval glands that are found in the scrotum, which for the male, the gonads are located on the outside of the body. Okay, the testes are going to be responsible for a lot of the male hormone production, and we call male hormones androgens, and the most common one that we see is testosterone. Okay, so on top of hormone secretion, the gametes are most responsible for the production. The gonads are most responsible for the production of gametes, which in the case of the male are spermatozoa, or another word for that is sperm. Now, in order for sperm to be produced, we have to go through a process called meiosis. Now, everyone should be familiar with mitosis because we've talked about it in previous biology courses. But meiosis is a special form of cell division, and we call it a reduction division. And the reason it's a reduction division is because at the end of the process, we cut the number of chromosomes in a cell in half. Okay? So this is done by separating homologous chromosomes in a diploid cell, and then we get into a haploid cell. So the question left here for you is, why is that necessary in human gametes? I'll let you think about that. So here's a look at a real simple meiosis, and I don't want you guys to worry about the whole process of it, but basically we take homologous chromosomes, we split them apart. So we reduce the number of chromosomes from 2 here to 1 in the first division, and then we do another division where we separate the chromatids. So we end up with, from one cell, we end up with 4 cells with half of the chromosome number. Okay, so the testes are basically a really long series of coiled up tubules. And the tubules inside the testes we call the seminiferous tubules. And it's in these tubules where we get the process of spermatogenesis. Now, whenever you see a big word in biology, always break it down. Genesis means to create, okay? And spermato, talking about spermatozoa, so spermatogenesis means the production of sperm, okay? Now, inside these tubules in here, here's our seminiferous tubules. Inside the testes, we're going to have these 2 different types of cells, the spermatogenic cells, and again, there's the genic part here. Those are the ones that are going to produce the sperm, and then we get these Sertoli cells, which are going to be there to help the process of spermatogenesis. Okay, so inside the testes, we have these seminiferous tubules. Inside these tubules, we have 2 different types of cells. One of them will produce the cells, the sperm, the spermatogenic cells, and the other set of cells are going to support that process, support spermatogenesis. Okay, so let's have a quick look at sperm production again. We'll start off with our spermatogonium. So that's our haploid cell, or sorry, a diploid cell in the testes that it's going to go that is going to undergo meiosis in order to give us sperm. So this process down here, the picture, is basically spermatogenesis. If we look at this process here, so we look at this phase, we're going to go from a cell that's 2N, we're going to double the number of chromosomes like we would in mitosis, sorry, and then we're going to have a cell division. So we go from a 2N cell to a 4N cell, which doubles the number, and then we go back to a 2N cell. So meiosis 1 is very similar to mitosis. Now, what's going to happen to these two new cells in meiosis 1 is each one of those are going to undergo another division, but in this time, we're not going to duplicate the homologous chromosomes. Instead, we're going to separate the chromatids. And when we do that, we end up with, instead of having 2 cells, we end up with 4 cells, and each of them have half of the number of chromosomes. So for every cell that undergoes meiosis in the male, in the testes, it produces 4 sperm cells. Each one of those cells are going to be haploid. So we start off with a 2N cell, and then when we get down to the sperm, we end up with just N, half the number of chromosomes. All right, if we look at the testes again, we're going to find another structure right next to it that's called the epididymis. The epididymis is another series of tubules that lie, structure that lies right on top of the testicle in the posterior part. And it's got a couple of different functions. One is for storage of sperm. So after the sperm are produced in the seminiferous tubules, they travel from the testes and they get stored in the epididymis. While they're there, they're going to undergo maturation. They build up energy stores, and they become a little bit metabolically active, which will help them move when it comes time to leave the male body. Now, sperm are moved along the series of ducts by peristaltic contractions. And the epididymis is the first real structure where we'll see those peristaltic contractions occur. Now, once the sperm leave the epididymis, they move into a long duct called the vas deferens, or sometimes it's called the ductus deferens. So those two words mean the same thing, vas deferens or ductus deferens. We're talking about the same structure. Now, this structure is what carries the sperm through a series or past a series of accessory glands, and those accessory glands are going to add secretions in with the sperm. So we're going to have secretions from the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. And when those secretions mix in with sperm, we call that mixture semen. Now, during sexual arousal, the vas deferens, this long tube, and you can see it on the picture here, is the purple tube, will carry the sperm from the epididymis, which is on top of the testicle, through the scrotum, through a bunch of different tissues in the male, and it'll carry it through all the way through to the urethra, and then from the urethra, of course, that's how sperm will get out of the body. And all of this will happen through these peristaltic contractions. Sperm can be stored for up to several months, and if sperm aren't used within several months, they'll just be reabsorbed by the body. Okay? Now, the accessory glands of the male reproductive system is what gives a lot of help and support to the sperm so that they are alive and healthy and capable of traveling and carrying out their mission, which is, of course, to find and fertilize an egg. The accessory glands are the ones that give the liquid portion to the semen. And we've got 3 different glands when we're talking about those. We talk about the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. So here's a look at 3 of those glands and their position. So if we look down here, we'll notice the testes, which are inside the scrotum, down at the bottom of the figure here. We see the epididymis, which is on top, the orange structure. Then the vas deferens, which is the long duct which carries the sperm. And then we get the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. So those are all the 3 structures that make up, well, these 3 structures are the male accessory glands. Now, first we'll have a look at the seminal vesicles. They're a pair of pouch-like structures that they add a couple of things to the sperm. They add an alkaline fluid, and this fluid contains two things. It contains fructose, and it contains clotting proteins. Now, this will make up part of the seminal fluid that, when mixed together with the sperm, make up the semen. And these have a couple of important functions. Remember that in the male reproductive, or the male urinary system and the male reproductive system share a common duct. They share the urethra. The exit for urine and semen or sperm are both the same tube. Now, if sperm is exposed to urine, urine can be a little bit acidic, and that can cause some pretty serious problems with sperm. So one of the things that the reproductive system does is it provides the sperm with a protection, these alkaline fluids, which will help neutralize any acidic, any low pH that's left over from urine. So it helps clean the urethra so that the sperm are protected as they leave. Another thing that the seminal vesicles will add is fructose. And fructose is a carbohydrate, it's a sugar, and that will provide energy to the sperm. And they can undergo metabolism to produce ATP so that it helps them in their movement. The last thing that the seminal vesicles will add are the clotting proteins, and this helps semen coagulate or group together when it's ejaculated or when it leaves the body. The second gland is the prostate gland, and the prostate gland is a donut-shaped gland. It's about the size of a golf ball, or maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger than a ping pong ball, and it's going to secrete a milky, slightly acidic fluid, and it makes up around a quarter or 25% of the seminal fluid. Now, what the secretions of the prostate gland contribute to the sperm, it adds, increases the motility of the sperm, which is really important. Sperm have to be able to move in order to reach and fertilize an egg, and it increases their viability. So it increases their strength and their ability to carry out their function, which is, of course, to find and fertilize an egg. The last gland is called the bulbourethral gland, or sometimes it's also known as the Cowper's gland. So those two words mean the same structure. And during sexual arousal, these glands are going to secrete again another alkaline fluid, which is going to help neutralize any acids that's left over from the urine that could be left into the urethra. So it's another form of protection for the sperm as it leaves the body. Now, the ejaculatory duct is the duct where, or the area where the semen that's produced in the testes and carried through the vas deferens, and all of these extra secretions have been added. It's going to be the area where the reproductive system of the male joins in with the urinary system. So it's the point where the reproductive system empties into the urethra. Okay, and we call that the ejaculatory duct. Now, all of this is the whole point so far is to produce semen. The semen is a mixture of the sperm, so those cells that are living have half the genetic material for the male, and the seminal fluid, which is all of those secretions that we talked about. You know, the alkaline fluid, the fructose, the clotting factor, all of those things that help the sperm in their journeys and their travels from the male reproductive system into the female reproductive system. So all of those accessory structures and those secretions are going to give the sperm energy. It's going to protect it from acids left behind from the urine, and it's going to increase their chances of viability and success when it reaches the female reproductive tract.